Out of 8 billion people walking this earth right now, only a fraction of 1% were marked before they were even born. Stop for a second. Let that sink in. 8 billion hearts beating, 8 billion souls breathing. And somewhere in that ocean of humanity, God reached down and pressed his thumb on a handful of names. He chose, he set apart, he sealed. And if you clicked on this video, if something inside you felt a pull before you even understood why, beloved, you need to keep watching. Because what I am about to share with you is not theory. It is not motivation. It is revelation. My name is George, and I have spent years sitting with believers who carry the same question you are carrying right now. That question that whispers in the middle of the night. That question that shows up when everyone else is laughing and you feel 1,000 miles away. The question that says, why am I so different? Why do I see what others do not see? Why does my spirit burn when the room around me is cold? And today, I am going to give you the answer. Not a comfortable answer, a true one. Because the truth is, you were marked. Think about Jeremiah for a moment. A young boy, terrified, shaking in his sandals. And God speaks to him with words that echo across every century since. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you came forth, I sanctified you. I ordained you. Notice something? God did not say, once you grow up and prove yourself, I will consider you. He did not say, if your parents raise you right, maybe. He said before the doctor held you, before your mother felt the first kick, before the world had a chance to tell you who you were. Heaven had already written your name on a different scroll. Think about what that really means. Before you ever took a breath, there was already a conversation happening about you in the courts of heaven. Before your first cry, angels were already on assignment for your life. Before the world stamped you with labels, before the school system measured you, before people pinned their opinions on you, before anyone told you what you could or could not become. God had already spoken a final word over your soul, and that word does not get overruled by anything that came after it. Not your past, not your failures, not your wounds, not your worst days or your quietest secrets. When heaven marks somebody, that mark holds. And here is where most people miss it. They spend their whole lives trying to earn something that was already given. They chase approval from rooms they were never meant to belong to. They bend themselves into shapes that contradict the very design God sealed into them. And they wonder why they are exhausted. They wonder why no amount of success fills the hole. They wonder why even their Sunday mornings feel rehearsed. Let me tell you why. Because a marked soul cannot find rest in a common calling. A chosen one cannot be satisfied living the script that was written for somebody else. I want you to picture a young man named Samuel, just a boy, sleeping in the temple, doing his little tasks, probably thinking his life was going to be small and quiet. And then, in the dead of night, a voice calls his name. He does not recognize it. He runs to Eli. Eli sends him back. It happens again and again, until finally, Samuel opens himself and says those 5 words that changed everything. Speak, Lord, your servant hears. That moment was not the beginning of Samuel's calling. That moment was the revelation of it. The calling had been there since the womb. His mother had prayed him into existence. His steps had been ordered before he could walk. But the world around him, even the old priest he served, could not see what God had placed inside that boy. And here is what most people miss. Eli, a man of God, a priest, could not discern what was moving in Samuel until the 3rd time. So why are you surprised that the people around you, your co-workers, your cousins, even some of your pastors, cannot see what is on you? They were not the ones who marked you. God was. And that is a hard truth to sit with, because we all want validation. We all want somebody with some kind of authority to look at us and say, yes, I see it. You are who you think you are. But sometimes the heaviest callings come with the loneliest confirmations. Sometimes God intentionally hides what he is doing in you from the people closest to you, not to punish you, but to protect what he is forming. Because if the wrong eyes see a gift too early, they will try to manage it. They will try to shrink it. They will try to squeeze it into categories they understand. And the mark of God was never meant to be managed by human hands. Joseph's father saw a piece of his calling. His brothers saw a threat. And God let him be thrown in a pit anyway, because the real curriculum of a marked life is not taught in safe places. Now let me get personal for a second. Somebody watching this right now has been carrying a weight they cannot explain. You walk into a room and you feel things nobody else feels. You hear a song and you weep without knowing why. You meet somebody for the first time and your spirit tells you things about them that no logical person would ever guess. You pray, and it is like the words come up from a place older than you, and you have been told you are too sensitive. You have been told you are too much. You have been told to calm down, cool off, stop being dramatic. Maybe you even started to believe it. Maybe you started silencing the very thing God gave you as a signal. Beloved, hear me. That sensitivity is not your weakness. That is your marker. That is the sign of the seal. The world trains people to feel less, to numb out, to harden up, to keep the surface smooth, no matter what is happening underneath. But God marks the ones who refuse to let their hearts get calloused. He marks the ones who still cry at funerals, even when everyone else is checking their phones. He marks the ones who cannot scroll past suffering without their spirit breaking a little. He marks the ones who walk into a hospital room and feel the fight in the air. The ones who sit next to strangers and know, somehow, that this person is carrying a burden. That is not coincidence. That is not imagination. That is the Holy Spirit flowing through a vessel that was wired to carry him. Out of 8 billion, God did not mark the loudest. He did not mark the richest. He did not mark the ones with the cleanest resumes or the prettiest smiles. He marked the ones who could feel what the Spirit was moving. He marked the ones whose hearts would break for the things that break his. He marked the ones who would rather walk alone with truth than dance in a crowd with a lie. Think about Enoch. The Bible gives us almost no details about his life. No sermons he preached. No wars he fought. No kingdoms he built. Just one haunting, beautiful sentence: Enoch walked with God, and was not, for God took him. Here was a man so marked, so set apart, so aligned with heaven, that God just one day decided, I want him with me. The ground could not hold him anymore. The world could not contain him anymore. And the only reason we even know his name is because heaven refused to let him be forgotten. And I will tell you something, there are Enochs walking around right now. Marked souls. Hidden ones. People that nobody is writing articles about. People that have no platform, no following, no title. But when they pray, mountains move. When they worship, atmospheres shift. When they walk into a room, the enemy scatters, because he recognizes a name he has seen written in the books of eternity. Could that be you? Think about it for a second. Really think. Because there is a reason you cannot settle. There is a reason common pleasures do not satisfy you the way they used to. There is a reason you will sit in a church service where everyone is standing up and clapping, and inside your spirit, you are weeping. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something is right with you. Something so right that even the patterns of religion feel too small to hold it. Now, I need to say something that might sting, and I am saying it because I love you too much to lie to you. Being marked is not a prize you carry around to feel special. Being marked is a summons. It is a call to pick up a weight that most people will never be asked to pick up. Jeremiah wept. Elijah ran. Paul was beaten. Moses stuttered. Jacob limped. Every single marked person in that book carried something. Every single one of them had nights where they wanted to quit. Every single one of them was misunderstood, mocked, abandoned by people they thought would stand with them. So if your life has been marked by strange battles, if the attacks against you have seemed too targeted, too specific, too personal, stop asking God why. Start asking him for the strategy. Because the enemy does not waste ammunition on people who do not threaten him. Demons do not tremble at people living ordinary lives. The spiritual warfare you have been experiencing is not random, and it is not a punishment. It is confirmation. You are marked, and that mark is read not only in heaven, it is read in hell, too. That is why your battles do not look like other people's battles. That is why you can be doing everything right and still feel pressure coming from directions you cannot even name. That is why certain relationships turned toxic the moment you got serious about God. That is why the enemy has tried, through every season of your life, to get you to doubt one specific thing, your identity. Because if he can keep you confused about who you are, he does not have to stop you. A marked soul that does not know it is marked will put itself in chains it was never meant to wear. A chosen one who believes the lie of worthlessness will build walls around the very gift God wants to release. So the war has always been over your self-understanding. The enemy does not fear your talent. He fears your revelation. Let me bring you back to Paul, a man who spent the first half of his life thinking he was serving God while actually persecuting the very people God had marked. He was zealous, he was educated, he was respected, and he was wrong. Completely wrong, until the day he was walking a dusty road to Damascus and a light from heaven knocked him flat on his face. God said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Not why are you persecuting them? Me. Because when you touch a marked soul, you are touching God himself. When you dismiss a chosen one, you are dismissing the very thumbprint of heaven." And Paul, who had built his whole identity on being right, had to sit in darkness for 3 days and let God rewire him from the inside out. Some of you are in that darkness right now. Not because you did something wrong, but because God is rewiring you, taking out the voices you picked up along the way, pulling off the labels, removing the false identity that got layered over the real one. It feels like loss, but it is actually restoration. You are being returned to the blueprint. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived. Things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let me keep walking with you, because we are not done. There is a woman I want you to remember. Her name was Hannah, and she carried a sorrow that almost broke her. Every year, she would go to the house of the Lord, and every year, she would go home still empty. Her husband loved her. She had more than enough bread on the table, but there was a space inside her that no human comfort could fill, and the people around her did not understand. Even the priest thought she was drunk when she was only praying, but heaven saw her, and out of that sorrow, out of that marked grief, came Samuel, the very boy who would one day anoint kings, the very voice that would speak over David, the very prophet who would bridge an entire era of Israel's history. But first, Hannah had to be broken. First, Hannah had to carry something the world called weakness. First, Hannah had to be marked. That is how God works with his chosen ones. He does not call you because everything is easy. He calls you because something inside you was willing to carry what others refused to touch. Maybe you are in a Hannah season, surrounded, misunderstood, weeping at altars where nobody sees you weep, praying prayers that feel like they bounce off the ceiling, staring at dreams that have taken too long. Beloved, do not you dare give up, because the very thing you are asking God for is being shaped in the waiting. The Samuel of your life is being assembled in the silence. God does not waste the tears of a marked soul. Every single one is collected. Every single one is counted. And when the time comes, and it always comes, the Lord opens the storehouse. And what he pours out of you will bless generations you will never even meet. Now let me talk to the ones who have been running. Because I know some of you clicked on this video knowing good and well you have been outrunning God. You felt the call years ago. You felt the nudge. You felt the whisper that would not go away. And you ran. You went the other direction. You buried yourself in work, or in relationships, or in achievements. Anything to drown out the voice that kept saying, I marked you for more. Jonah tried that too, remember? He got on a boat going the opposite direction of God's assignment, and the storm that came was not because God hated him. The storm came because God loved him too much to let him go quietly into a smaller life. The belly of that fish was not punishment. It was a classroom. It was a reset. It was God saying, all right, son, let us do this, my way. If you are in the belly right now, stop cursing the darkness and start listening. Because every marked soul eventually reaches a moment where God closes every other door. Not to hurt you, but because he is jealous for what he deposited in you before you were born. And he will not let the world, or the enemy, or even your own fear talk you out of it. Joseph understood this. A boy of 17 with a dream so big his own brothers could not stomach it. Thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in a prison cell. Year after year after year of nothing making sense. And yet every place he went, favor found him. Every darkness he entered, light leaked out. Because the mark on him could not be erased by circumstance. It could be delayed. It could be hidden. But it could never be removed. And at the right time, God's time, not Joseph's, that dusty, forgotten, falsely accused dreamer stood in front of Pharaoh. And the whole nation bowed. The whole story reversed. The whole family was saved. What if the years you thought were wasted were actually years of preparation? What if the delays were not punishment, but protection? What if every place that rejected you was actually God steering you away from a counterfeit destiny and toward the real one? Read me carefully, because I am not going to soften this. The marked do not arrive at the palace without first surviving the pit. Some of you are in the pit right now, and I am not going to tell you it is easy. I am not going to tell you it makes sense, but I am going to tell you heaven has not forgotten. The mark on you is still active. The promise over you is still breathing. And what the enemy meant to destroy, God is already turning into a platform. Ruth understood marking too. A foreign widow, a woman with no status, no husband, no future by the world's standards. And yet she made a decision where you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. And that simple, stubborn loyalty rewrote an entire bloodline. Because Ruth's son became the grandfather of David, and David's line became the line of Jesus himself. Out of 8 billion people today, out of every one in history, God chose to bring his son through the womb of a marked woman, whose name nobody would have remembered if she had not said yes when it cost her everything. Think about the weight of that decision. Ruth could have gone back. Naomi even told her to go back. Go find a husband. Go build a life. Go return to what is familiar. And every reasonable voice around her was saying the same thing. But there was something in Ruth that had already been touched by the living God. Something that knew going back was not an option anymore. Because once a soul has tasted heaven, everything else loses its flavor. Once a heart has been marked, the old life stops fitting. And maybe that is where you are tonight. Maybe you have been trying to squeeze yourself back into who you used to be, and it is not working. Maybe you have been trying to go back to conversations, back to circles, back to comforts that used to feel normal, and something in your spirit keeps saying, no. You cannot live there anymore. You have been marked. That is how heaven works. It does not choose the obvious. It chooses the obedient. It chooses the ones who, when everyone else is walking away, plant their feet and say, I am not moving. Not until you do what you said you would do. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer in your own spirit. Not out loud, not to me, but to God. Are you willing to be marked? Because marking is not just about what you receive. It is about what you are willing to carry. It is about whether you will still praise when the praise costs you. Whether you will still obey when obedience looks like loneliness. Whether you will still believe when every single circumstance is screaming the opposite of what God whispered to you in secret. Moses was marked, and he carried a stuttering tongue and the weight of a whole nation's complaints. Gideon was marked, and he had to face an army when he felt like the least of his family. David was marked, and he spent years in caves running from a king who wanted him dead. Esther was marked, and she had to walk into a throne room where any wrong move meant execution. Every single one of them wrestled. Every single one of them had moments of doubt. But every single one of them made the same choice at the crossroads. Yes, Lord, even here, even now, even this. And that is the question landing on you right now. Not whether you are special, you already are. Not whether you are chosen. That was settled before your first heartbeat. The question is, will you answer? Because the mark is a call, not a decoration. And heaven is waiting for your yes. I want to stay here a little longer, because some of you need to hear this part slowly. You have been trying to understand your life through the wrong lens. You have been measuring yourself by the timeline of people who were never called to carry what you carry, and it has been breaking you. You have looked at friends getting comfortable, cousins getting settled, co-workers climbing ladders, and somewhere inside you a voice says, "Why is my path so different? Why does nothing fit? Why do doors that seem perfect keep closing in my face?" Listen to me. Those closed doors were not rejection. Those closed doors were alignment. A marked life does not fit through ordinary openings. A marked soul cannot walk into a calling designed for somebody else, no matter how good it looks from the outside. And every time God has closed a door on you, even the ones that made you cry, even the ones that embarrassed you, even the ones you begged him to open, he was protecting the mark. He was keeping the seal intact. He was refusing to let you settle for a room that was never written with your name on it. Picture the moment before you were born, before the doctor, before the delivery room, before anyone on earth had any idea you were coming. Picture heaven in that moment. Picture the angels being briefed. Picture the Father himself looking at the scroll of your life and saying, "This one is going to carry something most will never understand. Put a fire in this one. Put a hunger in this one. Put a stubbornness in this one that will not bend to the patterns of the world." And then picture yourself arriving. Tiny, wrapped in a blanket. Nobody in that room knew what heaven had just released onto the earth. But you came in already sealed. That is why certain songs, certain moments, certain verses make you weep in ways you cannot explain to anyone. Because the part of you that remembers heaven is still alive. I want to leave you with one more image before we close. Picture a scroll, not a modern book. A long, ancient scroll being unrolled slowly, section by section. And on that scroll are names, billions of names. And heaven is searching, not for the talented, not for the educated, not for the wealthy, but for the willing, the ones who say, "Even if I do not understand the whole path, I trust the one who wrote it." If your name is on that scroll, and something in your spirit right now is whispering that it is, then everything changes from this day forward. Not because your circumstances instantly shift, but because your identity stops being up for negotiation. You stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never qualified to grade you. You stop shrinking to fit rooms that were never your assignment. You stand taller, walk slower, speak fewer words, and carry a fire that does not have to perform because it is already approved. That is what it means to be one of the marked. Out of 8 billion, God set you apart. Not to make you arrogant, but to make you useful. Not to lift you above others, but to position you as a vessel for others to find their way home. Now hear me, because this is where the whole video lands. The mark you have been carrying, the one that made you different, the one that made you cry when others laughed, the one that made you restless in easy places and steady in hard ones. The one that made people call you too deep, too intense, too much that mark was not a curse. It was never a curse. It was the signature of a God who looked across 8 billion faces and wrote yours into a smaller, stranger, more glorious story. A story that does not end in confusion. A story that does not end in loneliness. A story that ends with you standing in front of the one who sealed you, hearing the only words that ever truly mattered: well done, good and faithful servant. You carried what I gave you. You did not run. You did not bury it. You did not trade it away. And now you are home. So tonight, before you close this video, I am not going to ask you for a generic comment. I am going to ask you for a confession. In the comments below, I want you to write the one mark you have carried in silence. Not a word somebody else taught you. Not a Bible verse you copied off another comment. The specific thing. The dream that has not let you sleep. The calling you have been running from. The sensitivity you tried to bury. The night you heard something that only you could hear. The scar you thought was a flaw that you are now starting to suspect might have been the seal the whole time. Name it. Write it down where I can read it, where heaven can read it, where the person scrolling by after you who needed to see they were not alone can read it. Because when one marked soul steps into the light, it pulls other marked souls out of the shadows. This is how the scattered ones find each other. This is how the hidden army starts recognizing itself across the noise. Do not close this video carrying the same silence you came in with. Write the mark down. Let it breathe. Let it be witnessed. And watch what the Spirit does with the honesty of a chosen one who finally says the thing out loud. Out of 8 billion, God pulled one scroll with your name on it. Do not let another day pass pretending you did not hear him. I will see you in the next one, beloved. Walk worthy and walk marked.